Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Rudolf Steiner. This is an outline of occult science. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material and the link for my book where I teach you to do magic responsibly, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of an outline of occult science with chapter 3, Sleep and Death. Now this is an exceptionally long chapter. This is about 50 pages. It probably will be around 2 hours. So if I get to a natural stopping point about halfway in, then we are going to stop at that point and we will pick up tomorrow, simply to make it easier to digest. Now let us begin. Chapter 3, Sleep and Death. The nature of waking consciousness cannot be fathomed without observing that condition which man experiences during sleep, and the problem of life cannot be approached without studying death. Anyone failing to perceive the importance of occult science may distrust the manner in which it studies sleep and death. Occult science is, however, capable of appreciating the motives from which such distrust arises. For there is nothing incomprehensible in the assertion that man exists for an active, purposeful life, that his acts depend upon his devotion thereto, and that absorption in such conditions as sleep and death can result only from a taste for idle dreaming, and can lead to nothing else than vain imaginings. The refusal to accept anything of so fantastic a nature may readily be regarded as the expression of a sound mind. Well, indulgence in such idle dreaming is accounted morbid, and a pursuit fit only for people in whom the joy and ardor of life are lacking, and who are incapable of real work. It would be wrong to set this assertion aside at once as an injustice, for it contains a certain grain of truth. It is 1/4 truth, and must be completed by the remaining 3/4 belonging to it. Now, if we dispute that 1/4 which is right with one who recognizes that 1/4 quite distinctly, but who does not dream of the other 3/4, we only rouse his suspicions. For it must be indeed granted absolutely that the study of that which lies hidden in sleep and death is morbid, if it leads to weakness or to estrangement from real life. No less, we must admit that much of that which has always called itself occult science in the world, and which is even now practiced under that name, bears the impression of what is unhealthy and hostile to life. But this certainly does not spring from genuine occult science. This is a good place to point out that occult means hidden, not evil, right? Many people look at the occult as an evil thing. It is not intrinsically evil. It is not even kind of tangentially evil. It is quite simply just hidden knowledge. And what we do when we study the occult is to try to uncover that knowledge. Some of that knowledge is absolutely going to be hidden behind the veil of sleep. That is 1/3 of your life, right? There are 3 divisions into your life, right? Your daily existence. 8 hours are for sleep, 8 hours are for work, and 8 hours are for recreation. The 8 hours of work are for your physical body, right? The 8 hours of sleep are for your spiritual body, and the 8 hours of recreation are for your soul body. And so to have balance, then you need to balance those areas in your life. And so you absolutely do need to take into account the part of your life which is devoted to spirituality, right? You are not in charge of your dreams. Mostly. Some people do have lucid dreaming, but most people do not. It is a time for your spirit to express itself to you. Your dreams are you dealing with the things that happen to you in life, and that is how you process it. Understanding your dreams can lead to greater understanding of the things happening in your life and control of those things. And so you should absolutely be spending your time in understanding your dreams. That is not to say to spend your entire life doing so. The real fact of the matter is this, that just as man cannot always be awake, so neither is he sufficiently equipped for the actual conditions of life in its entire range, without that which occult science has to offer him. Life continues during sleep, and the forces which work and labor during the waking state draw their strength and refreshment from that which sleep gives them. It is thus with the things under our observation in the manifested world. The boundaries of that world are wider than the field of this observation, and what man recognizes in the visible must be supplemented and fertilized by what he is able to know of the invisible world. A man who did not continually renew his exhausted forces by sleep would bring his life to destruction, and in the same way a view of the world which is not fertilized by a knowledge of the unseen must lead to a feeling of desolation. It is similarly so with regard to death. Living creatures fall a prey to death in order that new life may arise. It is occult science which throws light on Goethe's beautiful phrase, "Nature invented death in order to have much life." Just as in the ordinary sense there could be no life without death, so there can be no real knowledge of the visible world without insight into the invisible. All discernment of the visible must plunge again and again into the invisible in order to develop. Thus, it is evident that occult science alone makes the life of revealed knowledge possible. When it emerges in its true form, it never enfeebles life, but strengthens it, and never renews its freshness and health. When left to its own resources, it has become weak and diseased. When a man sinks into sleep, the connection between his principles change, as described earlier in this work. The part of the sleeping man which lies upon his couch comprises the physical and etheric bodies, but not the astral body and not the ego. It is because the etheric body remains bound to the physical body in sleep that life activities continue. For the moment, the physical body is left to itself and must, of necessity, fall into decay. The things that are extinguished in sleep are ideas, pain, pleasure, joy, grief, the ability to express conscious will, and similar facts of existence. That is mostly true. When you are in sleep, you are not in the process of pain or pleasure. Like, you can have dreams that associate either one of those. But you are dealing with ideas in very real ways, right? It is not necessarily you making conscious choices to do so, but it is your soul doing so, right? That is the part that is dedicated to the spirit. And so it is the spirit communicating to you about the ideas. That is quite literally what dreams are, right? Dreams are not random things. It is you processing things. And so ideas are not extinguished in sleep, not entirely. There are people who have control of their dreams. I just briefly mentioned it, but people are able to take control and direct their dreams. And in those cases, that is definitely not extinguished in sleep. And so this is partly true, but it is partly not true. And that extends to the pleasure and pain as well. You can wake up with pain that is not there. You can wake up with pleasure that is not there. That is entirely what wet dreams are wrapped around, and teenage boys have them all of the time. Joy, grief, yes, you can experience those while you are asleep. I mean, if you've ever experienced a loss, there is a good chance that you woke up crying because you had a dream, right? That is something that can be expressed while you were asleep. It is not exclusive to the waking world, right? And the ability to express a conscious will, yeah, I'll grant you that one. But I mean, most of this is not entirely true, right? It is understandable why he made the conclusions that he did, but this is operating from a level of understanding that is not complete. But the astral body is the vehicle of all these things. That the astral body, with all its joy and sorrow, its realm of thought and will, is annihilated in sleep is an opinion that cannot be entertained by an unbiased judgment. It exists still, but in another condition. In order that the human ego and the astral body may not be endowed with pleasure and pain and all the other things we have named, but also have a conscious perception of them, it is necessary that the astral body should be united with the physical and etheric bodies. Now, this is an intrinsic problem. Now, this is leading into that idealism, realism argument once again. Right now, I do not believe in the idealistic world. I do believe that there is eternity. We came from there. We will return to there. The soul being eternal. It is a cycle that is never ending. I do not believe that this is a punishment. This existence is not prison. It is not condemnation. It is not hell, right? We're here for experiences, and all of those experiences are valid, even if they are unpleasant sometimes. The astral body, as it is being presented here, is being presented as something completely separate from your corporeal body. And that is kind of true, but it is kind of not true as well, right? This body, this is your 5D navigation device. You have length, width, height, thought, and time. Those are your 5 existences. You exist within all of those realms all of the time. We are here in this corporeal state intentionally. Our spirit is outside of us. It is the part that makes your heart beat. It is the part that keeps you breathing when you are asleep. It is separated from you, but it is intrinsic to you. Without it, you do not exist. The interconnectedness of all of your muscles, the nervous systems, all of those things rely upon the spirit. When you make the decision to wiggle your fingers, an electrical signal is sent to through your nerves to your fingers. You make the decision, the spirit sends the signal. The astral body is simply the soul. That is linked to your body. You can take that away, right? You can explore on an astral level. You can, through meditative practices, remove yourself from your consciousness. These are things that are possible. And so, in a way, it is a separate entity. But in another way, it's not, because this is your navigation device. And for most of the things that you do here, you will be inside of this body, right? There are things that you can affect outside of yourself. There are explorations that you can do outside of your body. But most of those are in sleep or meditative practices, altered states due to chemicals, or just simply flexing the right muscles. See the playlist. But for the most part, there is no separation between the body and the spirit, or the soul, right? Your soul is making the decisions for this body. It is not the body. You are a soul having a human experience. And so the body is intrinsic to that. This is an overarching separation, that this etheric body is the real you on a higher level, completely separated from the corporeal. And that is a disassociation that I'm not comfortable with. It may be true, right? I try to maintain a spirit of teachability even when I feel fairly certain about things. But this assumption that is made that the corporeal things are bad, right? The things of the flesh are intrinsically bad, and you are meant to just completely overcome them, is an unbalanced position, right? Anybody that is practicing asceticism is unbalanced. There are times for fasting, but it is not all of the time. There are times for restricted diets, but it is not all of the time. And whatever you feel comfortable with is valid in your existence, but you are almost certainly not called to be a vegan. You are almost certainly not called to be a carnivore diet consumer, right? People do those things. It is not healthy. Those are unbalanced ways to lose weight, right? If you are doing those things for weight loss, cutting the carbs out, it's going to make a difference, but you're unbalanced. Carbs are necessary fuel for your body. like proteins for the muscle growth. You're not getting those from the vegetables in the quantities or the shape that it needs to be. It needs to be in a certain way for your body to be able to incorporate it. The intrinsic devaluing of the body is what leads to this etheric body, right? I believe in the soul. I do believe that it is separate from the body, but not in the way that it is talked about here, right? This is overcoming through separation, and that is not correct. You overcome through incorporation, from taking the experiences and learning from them a better way. That is incorporation, not removing yourself entirely from the situation and never using a thing. That is not incorporation. That is separation. And this existence is not about separation. That is another one of those intrinsically bad things, right? That this possessiveness. Well, you are meant to have things, just not all of the things. You are meant to give away things, but not all of the things. You are meant to have emotional connections, but not with everybody, right? There's balances to be stricken in life, and the finding of that balance is the incorporation of the spirit and the world to you, right? It is taking the experiences and using that to elevate yourself on a spiritual plane. It is not removing yourself from temptation. It is understanding you can overcome the temptation of the thing. And so this whole process of intrinsically separating in this particular way, the body and the soul, I don't dig it, right? Then again, that is highly subjective. These are one of the things that we will not know about on the mortal plane. But you are here for a reason. Those reasons are good and bad equally, right? Even the bad things that happen to you are for a reason. They are not just random, arbitrary, horrible things unfolding in your life. You are meant to learn things from them. Sometimes the lesson is grief, right? Why did God let the children die? So that you can learn to mourn, asshole. Like, I know, I probably shouldn't have said that. But, like, for real, like, there is a reason for a child to die. It's just not a pleasant one, right? There are reasons for torture, right? God doesn't know what pain is. That doesn't mean that it's good, right? But it is an experience that happens. If it is an experience that happens to you, you are meant to find the best in it. That does not mean accepted. It doesn't mean you have to submit your life to torture. But if you're being tortured while you are in it and you are out of control, find the best in the situation. That is the same with all of the horrible things in life. It is about incorporating those lessons and overcoming them, making the alchemical gold of the idea, using your philosopher's stone to change a shitty situation into a not so bad, right? Still pretty horrible, but not bad situation, right? Your viewpoint does make a difference. If you are viewing your body as intrinsically bad, that is bad. That is a horrible thing to present yourself as, right? My body is horrible. I have to overcome it. No. You have to learn to live with it within the rules, right? The rules are eat well, exercise, and you get to live for a while. Treat others with respect and dignity, and you'll probably have some good relationships, right? These rules are intrinsic to the experience, and sometimes there are unpleasant experiences, but that doesn't make the body bad. And that's the point that I want to point out right here. The body is not a bad thing. The incorporation that we are here, God created existence. It is not intrinsically bad. Back to the text. It is necessary that the astral bodies should be united with the physical and etheric bodies. This is that triplicate that is, like, there is the body, there is the soul, and there is the spirit. Those are separate things, but they all work together. Your entire body is comprised of the spirit, but your body is not the entirety of the spirit. This is the case during waking life, but not in sleep. The astral body has withdrawn itself from the other bodies. That is an assumption that you are making. It has adopted another kind of existence than that which it possesses while united with the physical and etheric bodies. And that is an assumption. Just because you have the capacity to imagine something else does not mean that that something else is physically real, right? And so if you are in a dream and you are dreaming that you are in a different location than where you are, that doesn't make it so, right? This is assuming that it does, right? That because you are asleep and therefore not in control of your conscious thoughts, then obviously they have just gone somewhere else, right? No, you're just not awake. You're just not conscious. And it is working on a different mental level, but not necessarily on a physical level, right? There is no reason to believe that your etheric body, or what is it? Is it the astral? That your astral body is actually traveling to a location at all. Now, far sight, remote viewing, astral projection, those things are real as far as I can determine. That is the realm of speculation. I don't do them. I have studied other people's, and there is significant reason to believe that these things are true. Maybe not entirely true in the way they are presented even. Like Edgar Cayce, I've got some severe problems with Cayce. But there have been others, right? Cayce had some verifiable things as well. Later in life, some of his things got a little bit more wild and more out there. But when he was young, they were verifiable things, right? He was divining where a location of something was, and it was there that he had never been in, an item that he had never seen or touched that belonged to someone else, and he was able to locate that through astral means. That is a real thing, right? He is not the only one. There are many recorded cases of that happening. Not as often as the practitioners of it would probably want it to happen, but at least enough to where we can say that it is a probable thing that might happen, right? And so you are able to project your consciousness while awake to a different location, but maybe that is just seeing it. Maybe you're not actually there. Maybe you're bringing the image of it to you. We don't know that difference. There is a difference there. There's a major difference between bringing the vision of something to you and presenting yourself out to something else, right? And we don't know which one of those it is. We make assumptions based on terminology, based on the way that it was relayed. But that doesn't mean that it is exactly correct either. Even with astral projection, right? We, and I say we as the collective, say that we send our body, our etheric, our ethereal body, our astral body over there. But that doesn't mean that that is exactly what happens. That's just our perception of it, right? And if you go into it with the perception that you will be sending your body somewheres, then that is how you will view it, whether or not that is actually true. It is entirely possible, not conclusive, but entirely possible that you are merely bringing the vision of there here. And that is against what is being stated here. And so, just to keep the options open, right? It is not intrinsic that there is a there for the astral projection. It can be entirely within your mind. I don't have the capacity to do that, right? Whenever I have an experience, it has to be something else working on me because I can't do it willfully. It can be the collective unconscious, but it is not me. Now, it is the task of occult science to study this other kind of existence in the astral body. That I agree with. But do so without the presuppositions, right? If you are able to astrally project, do so objectively, right? Try to set as many conditionals as possible and verify them, right? Work with it objectively, and that's all. During sleep, the astral body withdraws from the possibility of external observation, and occult science must trace it in its hidden life until it again takes possession of the physical and etheric bodies on waking. Now, you can track your thoughts in a state, right? Maybe. If you're able to lucid dream, you can keep track of what is happening in your dream. Okay. Most people cannot do that. Most people do not remember the majority of their dreams. Many people don't dream. I know that people don't like that, but that is true. I very rarely dream. And it's not you're just not processing, right? I would remember that there was a dream, even if I don't remember what the dream was. 98% of the time, there is nothing. Whenever there is something, it's normally very relevant to my life, something just about to unfold in my physical presence. And so for me, dreaming is kind of akin to having a revelation because it does not happen often. I don't make my decisions based upon that, right? I don't say, oh, I had a dream, I can't go do this thing, right? I use logic. But it is definitely an awareness if I have a dream that I am looking. And so all of that again to say that there are things that we know and there are things that we don't know. There are things that we can verify and there are things that will never be verifiable. Anything that is dealing with the astral body is going to be close to that not verifiable thing. Now, you can set conditionals, right? If there is this person and they claim that they can astrally project, you can set conditionals for them that they have to meet, right? You can set a place that they've never been, people that they've never met, conditions outside of their control that you already know the answer to, and you can test it, right? If they can astrally project, well, go to my bedroom and read the paper that's on my desk. And if you can't do that, I'm not going to believe you. And that's a real thing, right? If you claim that you have the ability to do these things, then you should be able to do it in that manner. I don't claim that, right? I claim that I have healed myself. I show how I do that so that maybe somebody else can replicate it because I believe that it happened. I cannot verify that. Not until other people have replicated it. I do not have the ability to astrally project in that manner. I have had a few instances where it happened to me. I was not in control of it. And I do remember those things. I was awake when those spiritual experiences happened. And so I was conscious. I do have that cognition. But while I do believe that I was pulled out of my body, the whole experience was me leaving me. That doesn't mean that that's what happened. That means that that was what I saw in my mind, and that may have just been the way that I did it. Set conditionals and verify is the only way to do it, right? If you can read the paper that's on my desk, then we can talk. As in all cases, when knowledge of hidden things and events of life have to be dealt with, clairvoyant observation is necessary for the discovery of real facts of the sleep state in its true nature. But if that which may be discovered by this means has once been made clear, it is comprehensible to really unprejudiced thought without further demonstration. That is if the conditionals have been met, right? If you have set the conditionals and they have been met, then you can look at it as though it is real, right? If it is not, then you cannot, right? You can try, but it is not going to work. And this clairvoyant observation, that's another one, right? That is a trust but verify, right? You should have a trust to people, but there are people that use things and try to lie to you all of the time. Clairvoyance is one of those areas where people lie all of the time. Most of the people who claim to be clairvoyant are not. They are merely relaying thoughts that are in their head. That is not to knock the ones that are able to do it, right? But most of the people who are doing it ill-intentioned or not at all. For events in the unseen world show themselves by their effects in the manifested world. That's what I'm talking about. Trust, but verify. If it is not verifiable, you cannot trust it. And yes, that does extend to the things that I claim about healing myself, right? If you are not able to put it into play, if you are not able to replicate it, then maybe I just made it up. It can be psychosomatic. I have had physical effects, so I don't believe that. But it is still in the realm of possibility until other people have replicated it. If what is revealed by clairvoyant vision is an explanation of visible events, such a confirmation by life itself is the proof which may be rightly be demanded. Even one who will not use the means to be given later for attainment of clairvoyant vision may have the following experience. He may, in the first place, take the statements of the clairvoyant for granted, and then apply them to the material events within his experience. He will then find that life thereby becomes clear and comprehensible, and more exact, and the more exact and minute his observations of ordinary life, the more readily he will come to this conclusion. Even though the astral body during sleep passes through no experiences, though it is not conscious of pleasure, pain, and the like, it does not remain inactive. And again, I disagree with that, right? I have woken up grieving, right? That is pain. On the contrary, it is a fact that active work is its function in the sleep state. For it is the astral body which strengthens and recuperates man's forces. That is an assumption exhausted during waking life. That is an assumption that you are making. The mere existence of the astral body is an assumption that you make. I happen to agree with it, but it is still an assumption. And to give to that astral body the strengthening and recuperating, I don't know about that. Right, that is your physical body recuperating itself while the astral body is engaged elsewhere? Probably. As long as the astral body is united with the physical and etheric bodies, it is related to the outer world through these two bodies. They convey to it perceptions and representations. Through the impressions which they receive from their surroundings, it experiences pleasure and pain. Now, the physical body can be preserved in the form and shape suitable to the individual only by means of the human etheric body, but this human form can be preserved only by an etheric body which, on its part, receives corresponding forces from the astral body. The etheric body is the builder, the architect of the physical body. It can, however, construct in the true sense only when it receives from the astral body the impulse as to the manner in which it must build. In this latter are contained the models, according to which the etheric body gives the physical body its form. And this is again those three levels of existence, the idealism that I do not agree with. That there is this perfect body that you are a reflection of. I do not agree with that at all. And that is these models, right? These perfected bodies on the spiritual plane that we are mere reflections of. During our waking hours, these models for the physical body are not present in the astral body, or, at least, only to a certain extent. For in waking life, the soul replaces these models with its own images. When a person directs his senses upon the environment, he thus creates in his ideas pictures, which are copies of the worlds around him. Well, see, here's the thing about that. I don't, right? I have this thing called aphantasia. If you are unaware of what aphantasia is, it means that I cannot close my eyes and create a picture. At all. Not at all. I can now, for the first time in my life, after 47 years, I am healing myself, so I am able to visualize colors. That is it. Red, orange. And that takes work. It is not an immediate thing. Most people can close their eyes and visualize. Right? If I tell you to close your eyes and visualize grass, you can do so. If I tell you to picture a box, you can see the box. I cannot. There is no physical imagery whatsoever in my mind. I know where things are spatially. I know concepts. I write. I do art. I write music. I'm able to conceptualize and do, but not to visualize. I've had trouble with artistic representation, right? I have trouble drawing pictures because I cannot see it in my mind. I cannot replicate what's in my mind on the paper because I don't see it. And so when a person directs his senses upon his environment, he thus creates in his ideas pictures. Not necessarily. And that makes this an assumption which is not true. Most people do. Yes, I will grant. Not everybody. And therefore, it is not an assumption that you can make with reliable prediction. Even if it's only 5% of the population, which it probably is, that's 5% error rate off the top. Now, can people create pictures? Yes. Is that emphatically what happens? No. In fact, these copies at first disturb the prototypes, which give the etheric body the impulse to preserve the physical body. Such disturbance could not be present if a man, by virtue of his own activity, could convey to his astral body those pictures which would give the right impulse to the etheric body. Yet, this very disturbance plays an important part in human life and is able to express itself because the models for the etheric body do not come into full play in the waking life. This fact is revealed by fatigue. Now, during sleep, no external impressions disturb the force of the astral body. Therefore, in this condition, it can expel fatigue. Damn it. I was really hoping that Mr. Rudolph would be a little more consistent. After coming off of Levi and being so very aggravated by that particular study, and then stopping the Agrippa one because I was so aggravated by that, it is understandable why he is making these logical deductions, but they are not entirely correct. Right? This is an assumption that you are making. It is that you do recover fatigue by sleeping. But there is no reason to expect that is because of some ethereal body absorbing energy, right? There is no reason to believe that whatsoever. There is no reason to believe that it is expelling fatigue. Like it's a physical thing you can just push out of yourself. Like it is the wearing down, the body not being able to process because it has not had rest. Rest is the intrinsic part, not the astral body pushing out fatigue. That is an assumption, and the assumptions can make an ass out of you and me. The work of the astral body during sleep consists in removing fatigue, and it can accomplish this only by leaving the physical and etheric bodies. Again, an assumption that you are making. I can understand the logical conclusions by which you got there, but that does not make it true. During waking life, the astral body does its work within the physical body. During sleep, it works on the latter from without. For instance, just as the physical body has need of the outer world, which is of like substance with itself, for its supply of food, something of the same kind takes place in the case of the astral body. Let us imagine a physical human body removed from the surrounding world. It would die. That shows that physical life is an impossibility without the entire physical environment. In fact, the whole earth must be just as if it is physical human bodies are. The whole earth must be just as it is if physical human bodies are to exist upon it. There are some conditions of it that are adjustable, right? Yes, overarching, this is correct. I'm being pedantic. But we could live without Antarctica, right? We could live without a volcano. Now, overarching, maybe not. There are weather patterns that are affected by the cold that is retained at the North and South Poles. That is true. Carbon dioxide is expressed for the nourishment of plants by volcanoes. That is true. But for the most part, it is not necessarily obviously intrinsic to us that these things exist. Right? And so maybe they could be there without us. This is an assumption that you make. This is probably a correct assumption, but it is still an assumption. Right? There are weather patterns that are affected. The circulation of the oceans depend upon the heat from the equator and the cold in the northern poles and the south poles. That is a true thing. And so you do need the physical environment, yes. But my point is the assumption, right? Yes, this is a thing that is probably true, but not necessarily. It is entirely possible that human life can exist without the Earth, right? It is entirely possible that we can send a vessel into space and that people were able to live upon it, even for extended periods of time. Now, what the effects of that will be, we don't know. It will probably affect the human body in very real ways. Right? I think the longest anybody's been up there is about a year, and there were some severe skeletal muscular conditions coming from that. And so maybe it is intrinsic that we are here, but maybe it's not. Maybe we just haven't replicated the correct variables on the space vessel for human life to flourish in the way that it does here. Maybe it's not possible to flourish on a spaceship. Both of those are assumptions, right? Both of those are in the realm of speculation, and there's nothing wrong with speculation as long as you realize that it is speculation. But to say that physical life is an impossibility without the entire physical environment, that is a stretch. For, in reality, the whole human body is only a part of the Earth, indeed. In a wider sense, part of the whole physical universe. That is true. In this respect, it is related in the same sense as, for example, the finger of a hand to the entire human body. Separate the finger from the hand and it cannot remain a finger. It withers away. It's still a finger, it's just a decayed one, right? It becomes bones and eventually it will disappear, but it takes a long time. There are still people that venerate finger bones from 2,000 years ago. Which, by the way, is stupid. Like, not even unwise. Like, actively stupid. If you are worshiping the part of a body that somebody lost 2,000 years ago, you are doing dumb shit. Such would also be the fate of the human body were it removed from that body of which it was a member, from the conditions of life with which the Earth provides it. And again, I give the spaceship, right? We have not had effective space exploration, but that does not mean that it is outside the realm of possibilities. We are able to sustain life in a space atmosphere. Whether that is going to be beneficial in the long term is yet to be revealed, but it is definitely something we can do, right? And that removes from the realm of speculation whether or not it is possible. Yes, people can live off of the planet. We have done it. Not for extended amounts of time and not even very far away. Like the space station is just barely past the stratosphere. But regardless, that is a removal from the Earth conditions in its entirety, and people have been able to live, if not thrive. And this is only like these things that I am talking about. It is only through the lens of history that we can do that. When he was alive, right, when this book was written, planes were brand new. Nobody had ever been to space. Let it be raised above the surface of the earth but a sufficient number of miles, and it will perish, as the finger perishes when cut off from the hand. Well, it is possible that we have not gone quite that far, but we have been to the moon. I know some people do not believe that. That's stupid too. We have been there. There are reasons why we have not gone back. I'm not going to dive into it, but it's mostly because we forget things and we misplace things. But we have been there. Like, you can physically verify that through the fact that there is a laser attached to, or a mirror attached to the moon, and you can shoot a laser at it and get it returned to you and get an accurate distance reading for the moon in real time. These are things that you can do, right? That is a proof that we have been there. You can take a telescope if it is powerful enough and find the flag and the Sea of Tranquility. Right? You can find it. It is there. People did go there. The world is not flat either. There is no dome over a flat earth. If that pisses you off, you're in the wrong spot. Back to the text. If this fact is less apparent in the case of a man's physical organism than that of his finger in his body, it is merely because the finger cannot walk about on the body as man is able to do on the earth, And because on that account, the dependence of the former is more obvious. And again, I will point out that we do have people in space right now, like currently, today. There are people living a few miles, a sufficient number of miles, maybe not, right? Maybe they're 1 mile closer than they need to be. But probably not. In the same way that the physical body is embedded in the physical world to which it belongs, so does the astral body form a part of its own world, only it is torn out of it in waking life. We can form a clear idea of what happens when by having recourse to an analogy. Imagine a vessel filled with water. No one drop is a separate thing in itself within that entire mass of water, but let us take a little sponge and with it suck up a single drop from the whole mass of water. Something of this kind happens to the human astral body on awakening. During sleep, it is in a world resembling its own nature. In a certain sense, it forms part of it. On awakening, the physical and etheric bodies suck it up. They absorb it. They contain the organs through which it perceives the outer world. In order to achieve this perception, it has to leave its own world, for it is in that world alone that it can receive the models which it needs for the etheric body. Just as food is supplied to the physical body from its surroundings, so are the pictures of the world surrounding the astral body presented to it during the state of sleep. There, indeed, it lives in the universe beyond the physical and etheric bodies, in that same universe out of which the whole man is born, the source of the images by means of which man receives his form in this universe. He is linked in harmony with it, and when he awakens, he rises above the surface of this all-pervading harmony to attain external perception. In sleep, his astral body returns to the universal harmony. He brings so much strength from it to his body's own awakening that he can once more dispense, for a time, the sojourning in the realm of harmony. The astral body returns during sleep to its home and, on awakening, brings back to life freshly invigorated forces. That which the astral body thus gains and brings with it on waking finds its outer expression in the refreshment afforded by sound sleep. Further exposition of occult science will show that this home of the astral body is more extensive than that which belongs to the physical body in the narrower sense of the physical environment. Thus, while man as a physical being is a member of this earth, his astral body belongs to worlds in which other heavenly bodies, besides our earth, are included. During sleep, therefore, this can be made clear, as we've said, only by further explanations. It enters a world to which other stars than the earth belong. In recognition of the fact that man lives during sleep in a world of stars, that is, in an astral world, occult science calls that principle of man which has its real home in that astral world and which, every time it returns to its sleep state, draws renewed force from that world, the astral body. And again, you do not know that that is happening. It should be superfluous to point out that a misunderstanding might easily arise with regard to these facts. In our time, however, when certain materialistic modes of representation exist, it becomes quite necessary to draw attention to them. In quarters where such representations prevails, it may, of course, be said that such a thing as fatigue can be scientifically investigated only in accordance with physical conditions. Even if the learned are not yet unanimous with regard to the physical cause of fatigue, one thing is quite firmly established. We must accept certain physical processes which lie at the root of this phenomenon. Yes, you may. Must. It would be well, however, if it were recognized that occult science does not in any way oppose this assertion. It admits everything that is said in this connection, just as it is admitted that for the physical erection of a house, one brick must be laid upon another, and that when the house is finished, its form and construction can be explained by purely mechanical laws. But the thoughts of the architect are necessary for the building of the house. This cannot be discovered merely by the examination of physical laws. Kinda you can. Kinda you can. There are mechanics, right? There are physics. There are considerations that are built into the house that are necessary. The overlapping of the top and the bottom plates so that there is structural rigidity. The consistency of the outside materials that help hold the structure into the shape that it is in. The overarching aesthetic, even that, can be attributed to a physical law. Yes, it is created from the mind of a man, but it is created within certain bounds. Just as the thought of the creator of a house stands behind the physical laws which make it explicable, so too, behind what is affirmed with perfect accuracy by physical science, stands that of which occult science treats. This comparison is of course often put forward when the justification for a spiritual background to the world is in question. It may be considered a trivial one, but what is important in such matters is not familiarity with certain conceptions, but that the proper weight should be given them in establishing a fact. One may be prevented from doing this simply because the contrary ideas have so much power over the judgment that this weight is not felt. Dreaming is an intermediate state between sleeping and waking. What dream experiences offered a thoughtful observation is the many-colored interweaving of a picture world, which nevertheless conceals within itself some sort of law and order. At first, this world seems to have an ebb and flow, often in confused succession. Man, in his dream life, is set free from the laws of waking consciousness, which bind him to sense perception and the laws of reason. And yet, dreams have some sort of mysterious law, attractive and fascinating to human speculation, and this is the deeper reason why the beautiful play of imagination, lying at the root of artistic feeling, is always apt to be compared to dreaming. We need only to recall a few characteristic dreams to find this corroborated. A man dreams, for example, that he is driving off a dog that is attacking him. When he wakes, he finds himself in the act of unconsciously pushing off part of the bedclothes which had been lying on an unaccustomed part of his body, which had therefore become oppressive. What is it that dream life makes in this instance out of an incident perceptible to the senses? In the first place, it leaves in complete unconsciousness what the senses would perceive in a waking state, but it holds fast to the something essential, namely, the fact that the man wishes to repel something, and round about this it weaves a metaphorical occurrence. The pictures, as such, are echoes of waking life. There is something arbitrary in the way in which they are drawn from it. Everyone feels that the same external cause may conjure up various dream pictures, but they give off symbolic expression to the feeling that one has something to ward off. The dream creates symbols. It is a symbolist. Inner experiences can also be transformed into dream symbols. A man dreams that a fire is crackling beside him. He sees flames in his dream. He wakes up feeling that he is too heavily covered and has become too warm. The feeling of too great warmth expresses itself symbolically in the picture. Quite dramatic experiences may be enacted in a dream. For example, someone dreams that he is standing on the edge of a precipice. He sees a child running towards it. The dream makes him experience all the tortures of the thought, if only the child will not be heedless and fall over into the abyss. He sees it fall, and hears the dull thud of the body below. He awakes, and perceives that an object which had been hanging on the wall of the room has become unfastened, and made a dull sound by its fall. This simple event is expressed in dream life by one which unravels itself in exciting pictures. For the present, it is not at all necessary to engage in reflection as to the reason why. In the last example, the moment of the falling of the heavy object expresses itself in a series of events which seem to spread themselves over a length of time. It is only necessary to keep in view that the dream transforms into a picture, that which would present itself to the waking sense perception. And that is true, right? The dreaming world is not necessarily accurate. You can project into it things. That is why you should not be relying upon it for accurate information. We see that the moment the senses cease their activity, creative power asserts itself in man. It is the same creative power which is present in absolutely dreamless sleep, and at that time recuperates man's exhausted forces. For this dreamless sleep to take place, the astral body must be withdrawn from the etheric and physical bodies. Maybe, I don't know that I do that. During the dream state, it is so far separated from the physical body as to have no further connection with the organs of sense, but it still maintains a certain connection with the etheric body. The capacity for perceiving the experiences of the astral body by means of pictures is due to this connection which it maintains with the etheric body. The moment this connection also ceases, the pictures sink into the obscurity of unconsciousness, and dreamless sleep has set in. The arbitrary and often nonsensical element in dream pictures arises from the fact that the astral body cannot, on account of its separation from the sense organs of the physical body, relate its pictures to the correct objects and events in the outer environment. It is especially illuminating, in this matter, to examine a dream in which the ego is, as it were, split up. As for example in the case of a boy who dreams that he is a schoolboy and cannot answer the propounded question, while immediately afterwards as the teacher he himself answers it. The dreamer, being unable to make use of his physical organs of perception, is not able to connect both occurrences with himself as the same individual. Therefore, in order to recognize himself also as a permanent ego, man must first be equipped with outer organs of perception. Only when he has acquired the faculty of self-consciousness without the aid of such organs will the permanent ego become perceptible to him outside his physical body. Clairvoyant consciousness has to acquire this faculty, and the method of doing so will be treated in detail later in this work. Even death takes place for no other cause than a change in the connection of the principles of man's being. And what is visible to clairvoyant observation with regard to death may also be seen in its effects in the manifested world. In this case also, an unbiased judgment will find the teachings of occult science confirmed by observing external life. The expression of the invisible in the visible is, however, less evident with regard to these facts, and there is greater difficulty in feeling the importance of that which, in the events of outer life, endorses the statements of occult science in this domain. These statements may be supposed to be mere pictures of fancy, even more readily than many other things which have been dealt with in this work. If we shut ourselves off from the knowledge that everywhere in the visible is contained an unmistakable foreshadowing of the invisible. On the approach of sleep, only the astral body is released from the connection with the etheric and physical bodies, which still remain united. Whereas at death, the separation of the physical from the etheric body takes place. Alright, so we are right at an hour in, and it is less than halfway. But this appears to be taking on the second subject of the chapter, which is, the first one is sleep and the second one is death. And so I'm going to go ahead and do the wrap up here. That means that the next one may be a little bit longer, right? There is still more than half to do, but this is a good natural breaking place. It is between the sleep and death, and so we will pick up on this entire paragraph tomorrow. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult series of topics. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs and that I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but I do not apologize for it. It is important to me to maintain the veracity of things, right? If it can be proven, by all means, let us prove it, right? That is why I relayed what I have. I want other people to go at this objectively and see if they can or cannot prove it. Either way is fine for me. I have my results. It's not that important. I would like to relay that if it is accurate so that other people can replicate it. there are many things in here that we are not going to be able to verify, right? There is a lot of speculation that is contained in this section by necessity. And exploring those things as speculation is perfectly fine. It is a little bit less fine to put them forward as a fact, right? That there is this etheric body is by no means verifiable, right? I believe that there is the body, the soul, and the spirit, that they are intricately linked and yet separate. That can be the body, the etheric body, and the astral body, if you're looking at it in the right way. But even then, there are other assumptions that are made that are not necessarily true, right? The expulsion of exhaustion, we still do not understand that method, and it might be this, but to put it forward as this is making an assumption that I am not comfortable with. I like to maintain in the realm of speculation those things which are still speculative. That is a lot closer for me, right? These etheric projections and seeing things at a distance, I believe that that is possible. I don't believe that every instance that we have had relayed has been right, that many of them have been verifiably untrue, right? Even with Casey. And so there are reasons to both believe and disbelieve, and therefore we have to maintain speculation. There are things that can be done. I speak quite often about the things that I have put in this book, right? This book is short. It is a tiny little book, but it contains a lot of condensed information. This is the means by which I have affected change physically in my life. There is no etherics. There is no idealized world. There is none of that. There are multiple timelines. That is my speculation on how this works. And to me, manifestation is merely aligning yourself with a timeline that was already going to unfold. It doesn't require seeing it, right? You are setting intentions, and that intention is bringing it to you. It is possible to visualize things and materialize them. People do it, not to the effectiveness that you would expect if this was real information. Millions of people have read this book, right? That is not an unreasonable assumption, right? That is a reasonable assumption. It has been 120 years. It is reasonable to assume that 1 million people have read this. 1 million people have not put it into action, right? That is the main difference. We don't see the results. If you read this book and you put it into play, I expect you to find the results. I expect you to literally change your life in literal ways, right? Physically manifest things. And if that doesn't happen, let me know. Like if you put this into play and it doesn't work, let me know. Maybe I need to make adjustments in how I explain it. Because I have physical effects, and it involves none of this. It doesn't require a belief in an idealized world. I do believe that there is an eternity. I believe that it is linked to here. I do believe that you can manifest things, that you can astrally project, but unless it is through a verifiable system, I have a hard time believing it, right? And that is from somebody who relays a spiritual experience all of the time, right? I got pulled out of my body, and I had a whole experience of watching creation unfold. But when I tell that story, I try to maintain that it is a personal experience, and it may not be true. It led to these things that I believe have changed my life. But unless somebody else can do the same things and get the same results, it is maybe just a psychosomatic effect, and that is something you have to be able to remember. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment, whether you agree or disagree with anything. Put it in the box. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you have another work you would like to see me explore, put that in the box as well. And if you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of this book where I teach you to do manifestation responsibly. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pit Steak. Peace.